And this hangout is on air live, and it is the 23rd of July. Summer has officially emerged from its hiding place amid the rain clouds. So, how are things up north there, Barrett?
Doing good, sweating out the toxins, finding that peace. We don't always need to go to a sweat lodge, especially this time of year. We can just hang out someplace hot and has the same.
Yeah, and it looks like the next 10 days or so we'll have plenty of hot spots to explore for that. Although it seems like this summer had very sluggish beginning, so we'll see how the rest of it accelerates. But again, that's the ephemeral nature of this material world. Who knows what's going to happen next?
Exactly. Things here are always changing, and a lot of times we kind of hook our happiness onto one of these things, and when it shows up, all of a sudden things are great, and then either our goals change and we're not happy with what we have anymore, or all of a sudden what we have is no longer there. And as we've been talking about in all these, what we want to do is just keep attaching our happiness to something that doesn't fade, that doesn't change, it doesn't come and go. And that's really what the Course calls atonement or salvation, knowing that our happiness is really eternal, and it's not something that comes and goes.
Exactly. It's what we attach it to, as you had said, because back in May, I bought a couple of hibiscus plants for the back porch here, and they are really amazing. If people are not familiar with the hibiscus, they bloom almost, nonstop, and they're huge blossoms. They're big, bright, very attractive blossoms, but the blossoms last for between 25 and 30 hours, and they're gone. So it's, a fascinating process to watch because you have this birth of radiance and beauty, and then it goes through that um, retrograde cycle where it closes in on itself, and then the bud eventually falls off and is gone. And one of the thoughts that I had when I was sitting out on my deck this morning looking at my hibiscus with its 9 bright blossoms was going back and referencing the Course when they're talking about in chapter 29, the awakening. And I love what it says. It says, "Swear not to die, you holy Son of God." Wow. Our common rhetoric is everybody dies, but the Course gives us a whole different vector to contemplate. It says, "You make a bargain that you cannot keep." That's an interesting second thought. You cannot die. The Son of Life cannot be killed. He is immortal as his Father. What he is cannot be changed. So I'm sitting there watching these blossoms come into being and then die and then fall off of the bush. And I'm thinking how this world is constantly trying to convince me that I am not an immortal being. And everything is a reflection of that act of death and decay and termination. So, what seems eternal in this realm will all have an end. But I like what it says as this thought continues: "The stars will disappear, and night and day will be no more. All things that come and go, the tides, the seasons, and the lives of men, all things that change with time and bloom and fade, will not return." So this realm is the illusion that has seduced us for a brief period of time. But in the Course, where time has set an end is not where the eternal is. God's realm is in that space of eternality.
Wow, that just hits home pretty deep. As you were sharing, what was coming to mind for me was, that a lot of people have have an issue with this idea that nothing in this world of time and space is real. That reality is only what is eternal and changeless. And I think as they get exposed to that idea, there's a feeling like that can't be 100% true. I had a friend of mine that was sharing that because he was watching his grandson playing in the waves and with just such joy and happiness. And he said to me something like, are you saying to me that that's not real? And what I would say is that the happiness and the joy that is in that experience is reflective of the truth. But the form itself is never real because the form always will end. There's only one guarantee here in the world of time and space, and that is whatever is here right now will change. It will end. It will die. But as your quote was just sharing, Chris, death itself is actually not true. There is no death, and death is an idea that we have latched onto, and because of our belief in it, we see it all around us. What is death but the idea that something can end? And what is real life? What is the eternal nature of God but the truth that there is no ending? What has no beginning and no ending other than oneness, other than love? So we've made up this false idea, and then we prove it in this world. This world is actually made to demonstrate the falseness of the ego's thought system, or to demonstrate that these false ideas are true. So we see them again and again, and they seem to reinforce that death is real, that separation is true. But what we come to see is that as we question these underpinnings, as we begin to see that they don't really rest on anything, then all the sting that death here has begins to fade. All the suffering that this idea of loss entails begins to be washed away. And that's the real gift that we have as we embrace this idea that we don't need to suffer, even if the things here on the screen of our lives don't look that great.
Exactly. And, we do have all of our rituals in which we honor death. And for me, I'm sitting out on my back deck watching, the blossoms descend from my tree. And across the street is a nursing home that is designed for that terminal passage for people. So I am also getting assaulted with these visions of ambulances constantly coming and going and carting people around. And it's quite interesting because there is this journey that we are upon where if we are attached to our body, and the body is always in a state of decay in one sense or another. But if we attach ourselves to that belief that we are that body, it gets uglier and uglier and uglier until finally you come to that point where you welcome the idea of death just to get out of, that rotting process that's going on with the flesh. And that's kind of an ugly image, and a lot of people don't like to stop and contemplate that, but seeing it, and I'm sure that a lot of people who work in that industry are very committed to making that passage as painless as possible, with morphine and all the other drugs and all the other different ways of assuaging that journey into the realm of darkness. But in real truth, the actual solution, the easy way out, is to surrender your attachment to that identity with the body and start to reclaim your true identity, which is basically the expression of God itself, which is, when you stop and think about it, that's pretty amazing. And that's what I like about the Course is over and over and over again, we are told that we are not this crippled, pathetic, mindless lump of clay that's stumbling around on the planet hoping to succeed one day, but really believing deep down that that's never going to occur. And all of a sudden, when we shift that focus and recognize that we are these celestial beings, infinite and bright and filled with wonder and grace. What a powerful, powerful step that can become for people.
Yeah, I was just reading a section in the Course where Jesus refers to this body as dust, and he questions us. He says, is this what you would have yourself be? Could the Holy Son of God be reduced to such a small thing? And the truth of the matter is, that's what we've done to ourselves. Our real nature is that infinite grandeur. It is that perfect light and love. And we've taken that seeming wholeness, that real wholeness, and we've made it into this kind of entity that's trapped in time and space. And it is kind of a challenging thing to believe this is our truth. But we can begin to question that. And I think this kind of fits in with another section of the Course that I wanted to bring up, this one from chapter 18. Forget not that it has been your decision to make everything that is natural and easy for you impossible. If you believe the holy instant is difficult for you, it is because you have become the arbiter of what is possible and remain unwilling to give place to one who knows. So we're setting aside the simple and the easy, which is our awakening to the truth of ourself. And we're buying into this very complex and challenging thought system, which is the thought system of death. And he's basically saying, do you want to take the simple and easy route? Even though it's not necessarily very easy for us to be consistent with that. By comparison, it is very much simpler than what we currently believe. The whole belief in orders of difficulty and miracles is centered on this. Everything God wills is not only possible, but has already happened. And that is why the past has gone. It never really happened in reality. Only in your mind, which thought it did, is its undoing needful. So that's more good news for us. All of this past that we suffer from and believe is our burden that we're carrying around with us is unreal and never really happened. I mean, what a weight off our shoulders is that? We walk through this world believing that we have all these problems that we've accumulated in this lifetime. And I also work with people doing past life healing. And so if you continue that back, how many lifetimes of karma maybe we're carrying? And the good news is that none of that is real, that there is no real accumulation, but there is our belief that it's real. And if we go deep enough, we always come down to the ego's bedrock, which is that we are separate from God. The good news is that this bedrock is not even real. All of the ego's thought system is resting on a non-existent foundation. And when we come to see that that foundation itself has no merit, has no truth, has no reality, then like a deck of cards that we build into a house, the whole thing just crumbles and falls. There's nothing for it to stand on. And then we can come to reawaken in that perfect peace of God's love and bring that with us into everything we do in our lives.
Yeah, that's very true. And, the thing that's interesting, Barrett, is that when we do have respite from, our own travails, when there are periods in our life where we're not constantly on the defensive and we're leaping from lily pond to or lily pad to lily pad, trying to outrun whatever it is that's been pursuing us, we have a tendency to look around us and to observe other people and their trials and tribulations. And in doing so, a lot of times, instead of looking at them with that capacity to see beyond what they were suffering from and to affirm on their behalf that they really, are just caught up in a nightmare, and that the truth is that they are healthy and happy and in the midst of transformation just as you are. So we do have to start becoming mindful, because every time we affirm somebody else's bad luck or somebody else's sickness or somebody else's dire circumstances, we make that more concrete. And we really have to become uh, invested in looking at the world around us and constantly affirming the truth that there is Jesus and the ragamuffin clothing of the person that we're observing. And the truth is that they're as sacred and as beautiful and as eternal as we are. So it becomes kind of a double-edged sword. If you're not working on your own problems in real time and in real space, you have to be working on the bigger problem of all of the sonship being restored to their natural place within God. So there's a lot of different aspects to these ideas that we really have to continue to keep our attention on.
Yeah, it's true, and I think that you're sharing right there. It really ties in with this idea in the course that as you see your brother, so you see yourself, and as you see yourself, so you see God. You know, you can't help but seeing everyone in the same way that you see anyone. So this exercise of looking around us as we live our lives and knowing that the Christ is in every person, it really helps us to know that the Christ is us, and that that's no different than what God is. But when we think of ourselves as mortal, helpless beings that are struggling and trapped in sorrow, then we can't help but see everyone around us that way too, and we can't help but see God as some sort of vindictive creature who's out to get his revenge on us. Um, so it's like, well, which of those visions do you want to have? And I think sometimes just remembering that that's a choice we can make. It's that choice to be mindful. It's that choice to see the world with the vision of Christ. Um, it makes a big difference. And it reminds me of a saying I've heard. I believe it's a Native American saying where, um, may we see not with our two eyes, but with the one eye that is our heart. And for me, that just sums it up.
That very much sums it up, and that really is, again, the core of our teachings are what is being presented to as our teachings, and it's a journey that at some point we will all step into our own ministry here. We start out as learning the course, but as we evolve, we all are going to have to participate on that next level, which is, seeing the truth on everyone's behalf and sharing that and helping people to look beyond their fear and their sorrow and especially their guilt, because the guilt is the burden that every soul on this planet is struggling with.
Yeah, yeah. And when we can set that down in any way, we're setting it down for everyone. I think that speaks to this idea that the world is not as separate as it seems, that it's really more like a big hologram. And when we think of it that way, what it means is that each of us is in everyone, and everyone is in each of us. So any sort of healing we do with anyone is actually for everyone. So, I think that helps motivate us forward sometimes too, to know that that healing is for everyone, and it's kind of like, all right, a little added bonus.
Exactly, changing the old adage, "No one gets out of here alive," to "Everyone gets out of here alive," and so it's time for us to start working out the kinks in that theory.
Yeah.
Well, Barrett, it's going to be a hot weekend, so you're going to have to get out there and probably head for another water park or do something equally refreshing.
Yeah, splish splash. It's that time of year. Just got a new swimsuit, so I got to break it in.
There you go. Well, I will see you in 1 week.
All right, stay cool, my friend.
You too. Take care.